What is good, y'all? Welcome back to Chris and Rob Productions. I am Chris, and today I am going to be ranking MCU projects, all 41. So I did this through my letterboxd. I started it today. If you want to go ahead and give that a follow, I'd much appreciate that. I'll drop the link down below. So this is all 41 projects, so movies and shows. The only one that's not on here because I could not find it on Letterboxd is the What If series. But I absolutely love the What If series. So this is gonna be a pretty interesting video. I know a lot of people are gonna agree with me, and I think a lot more are gonna disagree with me. But at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, so the MCU, I have been a fan since literal day one. I remember Iron Man coming out back in 2008. And then over the years, it just kept developing. And then Avengers happened in 2012. That was a grand event. And I remember when Guardians came out in 2014, that just shaped my mind on how a comic movie can be made. And then so on, so on, so on. Endgame came out, changed the freaking pop culture world. And then now we're here at Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to go ahead and get started with number 41, Thor the Dark World. Okay. Dark Elves. This is easily for me the worst Thor movie, and it's to me the worst MCU project. Is there any redeeming qualities? All right, we'll go ahead and go into the next group of five. All right, number 40 is Miss Marvel. So the Disney Plus show that came out last year. I know a lot of people loved it. I'm not gonna say I hated it. It's at 40, so it is low on my rankings, second to last. But it just wasn't for me. The show, not everything has to be targeted towards me, which is fine. I understand that. But yeah, the show just didn't work for me. At number 39 is Ant-Man Quantumania. If you watched our spoiler review, I had issues and issues and issues with this film. I did not like it. Uh, Probably the only redeeming quality I'd say, I mean, Kang was good, but that situation right now is not, it's pretty messed up what's going on with that. But MODOK, I really enjoyed MODOK, if I'm being honest with you. He made me laugh every time he was on screen, and I'm sure that was their intention, to actually make you laugh whenever he was on screen and things like that. All right, so coming in at number 38 is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This movie was probably the second most hyped movie after No Way Home, obviously Endgame, pre and post Endgame. This movie it set the bar so high with its trailers, and it disappointed. Um, it could have been because of the expectations, but I just think the story was lackluster. And I love Sam Raimi. I love the Evil Dead franchise. It has a special place in my heart. And I love the Raimi trilogy with Toby and all that. But I don't know. It just some of the creative decisions in this movie took me out. It felt very early 2000s and not in a good way, personally. But yeah, at number 37 is Eternals. I know a lot of you would have Eternals at the dead last, but I enjoyed this more than the previous projects. The biggest issue is that it's not well lit, and I understand the director what she was going for was for natural lighting, but I think that really hurt the film. Then also such a big ensemble of Eternals. What it's like 11 characters that they introduced. There's only so much character development you can give to some of them. I did really enjoy Cersei, and then I enjoyed Angelina Jolie's character, Athena. I thought she was my favorite character in the movie. But yeah, Eternals actually has a really good story if you really look at it. But at number 37, at number 36 for me is Loki. So I did a short on Loki season 2, which I am excited for season 2 because it did want me wanting more. I said that right? Yeah. But the biggest issue was the actual cliffhangers. And it did its job in me wanting to come back and see season 2. But the cliffhangers, it really messed up the season for me because I felt like it didn't resolve anything for what it built up and the multiple stories that it did. I think Tom Hiddleston, he's great as Loki, and that episode 1 is one of my favorite episode 1s in any of the MCU shows. But yeah, so Loki season 2, I am really looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and get into our next 5. All right, boom. Okay, so at number 35 is the first Thor. Um, Yeah, I think this is my third favorite, Thor movie, and I think Chris Hemsworth, the way that because I didn't know much about Thor going into it. I knew about Iron Man going into Iron Man 1. I knew about Cap going to Captain America, but for Thor, I knew of Thor, but I didn't know any of his background, or at least much of it at all. And I think Chris Hemsworth, he is Thor to me. He does a great job as that character. The only issue with this movie is, I guess the third act is forgettable. The ending with Loki, I think, is really good, but the rest of the movie has its ups and downs. But yeah, at number 35, Thor. There at number 34 is Captain Marvel. So I have rewatched this probably like 2 or 3 times within the last year and a half, just to give it another shot. And I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I did when I first saw it in theaters. It still has a third act problem. I think it's very forgettable. Even having seeing it like 3 times within the last year and a half, I still kept forgetting what happened in the third act. Um, but yeah, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, I think she's a fine Captain Marvel. I don't understand a lot of the hate that she gets, or any of the hate at all. But yeah, we'll see what they do with the next movie. All right, now coming in at number 33 is Iron Man 3. Again, a weak villain. And this is whenever Marvel started to have its issue, or when people started to really notice, and a little bit after this as well, is they went through a rough patch of villains being super weak and being forgettable. So yeah, at number 33, Iron Man 3, the best part is Tony Stark's story. The way RDJ portrays, the way that he has panic attacks and how he deals with them. I think that is what really elevates his movie. And I know there's a lot of people out there who this is their favorite Iron Man 3, which is fair. All right, coming in at number 3 is Wakanda Forever. So it came out last year on my birthday. So me and a couple of my friends, and then Ralphie, we went and we saw this in theaters, and we had a pretty good time for what it portrayed. I think Namor is one of my favorite MCU characters that they've introduced in the last couple of years. But the biggest issue is, obviously Chadwick's not there, and for the obvious reason, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. There's no way to avoid that. That happened, and it's not fair to put that against this film. But as you're watching it, you do notice that the star is not there. And they did what they could with the script. I know Ryan Coogler had to rewrite most of the movie last second because of what happened. But I think what they were able to put out was pretty good and pretty decent. All right, coming in at number 31 is Moon Knight. So it's 6 episodes, 5 episodes great, 6 episode I did not like, but it didn't ruin the rest of the season, for unlike Loki for me. I think Moon Knight, what the mental health issues or disorders that it talks about and it plays on, I think it's handled really well. And Oscar Isaac, I think he is carrying that show from beginning to end, and I just really liked his character. I like Moon Knight as a character, and like I mentioned, the 6th episode I do not like. It just turned into a giant CGI fest, which is every movie on here. But it took away from what the first 5 episodes were doing. So at number 31, Moon Knight. All right, let's go ahead and get into my next five. It is going to be starting off with Hulk. Hulk right there. All right. So this one, a lot of people have issues with it, not because it's a bad movie, because it's not. It's at number 30 for me, so I really like it. It's just because it's not Mark Ruffalo portraying the character, in which I found out recently that he was actually the first choice. He was going to be casted, but scheduling conflicts or things like that. But yeah, so number 30, Hulk. I think this movie is going to get a lot of redemption, if there's any redemption, because it's a good movie to me, and Captain America: New World Order with Sam Wilson as Cap, because they're bringing back Thunderbolt Ross, which we've seen throughout the MCU. They're bringing back his daughter. They're bringing back forget his name. He has the big head. I forget. Yeah, they're bringing. He's gonna be like the main villain. What's his name, Earl? The leader. Yes, I'm blanked out so hard. Yeah, the leader. So he's going to be the main villain in New World Order, and he was introduced in Hulk. At number 29 is Black Widow. So Black Widow, it has a really good spot for me at 29. The opening sequence with the title sequence, with all the stuff that was happening in the background, was super heavy, and that I really liked the way that they were able to portray that and tell people what's actually going on. And Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, I think she's a wonderful character. The biggest issue with this movie is the villain, but even with that, the villain's not being Jack for me. The family element elevates this so much. I love it so much. I rewatched this movie a couple of times just to actually see them at that dinner table talking about their lives and how it turned out and all that. So number 29, Black Widow. Number 28 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this was the first episode was amazing. And I remember, so put your mindset early 2021. We've gone so long without an MCU project. We're just off of WandaVision, which was its own contained story. And then now you get into Falcon and Winter Soldier, and this is like the broader MCU espionage, Shield, spy stuff like that. Even Shield's not in this, but Anthony Mackie, he's one of my absolute favorite MCU characters. And then Sebastian Stan as Bucky, I think he just proves that he's one of the pillars in the MCU now. But my biggest issue is the villain. I don't like the Flag Smashers. They're annoying to me. They have no redeeming quality, which they try to do at the end. They try to redeem them, and I didn't like that because it just further just divided the fan base. And in terms of like, they're doing bad stuff, but they're not bad guys, apparently. I don't know. I didn't really like the villains at all. But Sam Wilson I loved, and then Bucky I really loved as well. And then Baron Zemo, he was whatever. He added some to the story, but he didn't really add much. Okay, coming in at number 27, Iron Man 2, which is surprising. A lot of people do not like this movie compared to some of the other ones that you've seen so far. But this has so like a high rewatchability for me. I've seen it so many times. I just like Iron Man 2. The fight sequence between Tony Stark and Rhodey and and Tony's mansion, absolutely love. The villain, I don't hate him. He's fine. He's a pretty decent villain. He's heavy on like what's his name? Rourke, I forget his name, the actor. He's heavy on that accent, but I mean it's whatever. The villain's okay to me. He's not bad. All right, coming in at number 26 is She-Hulk, and I know a lot of people probably disagree with that, but I absolutely loved She-Hulk. I think Tatiana Maslany, she's one of my favorite additions in this Phase 4. I think she's wonderful as She-Hulk. The issues with this show is most likely filler episodes. There are like not a handful, probably like 2 episodes which were just basically they didn't really further develop the story that much. And a lot of people had an issue with the season finale. I, for one, loved it. I loved the way that they portrayed that. And because that's Jennifer Walters, she breaks the fourth wall, and the whole episode is her breaking the fourth wall. And I love that. Then obviously having Deadpool in it. Deadpool, what more can I say? He's the man. And then Wongers. So I thought he was great as well. All right, my next 5. Okay. All right, coming in at number 25 is Doctor Strange right here. So this was Benedict Cumberbatch's introduction into the MCU. And this one to me is way better than Multiverse in Madness. Something like that, in the Mat, whatever. But yeah, Doctor Strange, it has some of the best visual effects in all of the projects because of what Scott Dickinson was able to portray. And the story is fine throughout. I think the best parts is Stephen Strange learning how to become a sorcerer, and then Dormammu at the end. I think actually was pretty dope. I actually like that sequence. So overall, it's not that many misses at all. So I have it at number 25, Doctor Strange. At number 24 is Thor: Love and Thunder. I already know some of y'all are screaming at the screen because a lot of you don't like Thor: Love and Thunder or hate it. I, for one, I love Thor: Love and Thunder. I saw it multiple times in theaters. Is it heavy on comedy? Of course. And that is the biggest issue for a lot of people. But for me, it just further, developed the story for me. I like the humor. The Jane Foster story, I think with her having cancer, it made me tear up because, some personal stuff. But yeah, I think Thor: Love and Thunder is a hilarious MCU movie. And Chris Hemsworth, he's been open about it, saying how he's ready to change directions. But what they've done so far, I think, is good. All right, at number 23 is Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Fun, happy, fun. Brother and sister at the end with Mantis and Chris Pratt, Star-Lord. Made me tear up. This is really dope. Not much to say because it's not that long, but I loved it so much to have it at 23. At number 22, Spider-Man Far From Home. The more I've watched it, the less I've enjoyed it. But with that being said, it's still at number 22 because it's still a pretty good Spidey movie. I think Tom Holland, obviously, he's A great Spider-Man. People love him. I love him as Spider-Man. And I think the only issue with this movie is it not being in New York. Uh, it's all overseas and things like that, which obviously it's in the name Far From Home. But yeah. All right, at number 21 is WandaVision. Man, like I mentioned earlier with Falcon, put yourself in the mindset early 2021. We haven't had an MCU project in over a year. And then we get this. This week by week was must talk on social media. Everybody was talking about it. Absolutely loved WandaVision. My issue with it is the finale. Not that I didn't like majority of the finale because I like what they did, but the conclusion of just basically just some plot decisions that they did I did not like. But WandaVision I thoroughly enjoyed majority of it. All right, number 20 is Avengers Age of Ultron. This movie, it's kind of had a resurgence. It had a lot of hate for a few years. People were saying, oh, it didn't add anything to the MCU. Looking back at it, it added so much. They first talked about Wakanda, and then we get Scarlet Witch, and then Quicksilver, and then we just get so much in this story. And just as so the way I see Age of Ultron, it's the last MCU movie to actually have the core six be on a team, because in 2016 they've had a falling out. Thor was gone, Hulk was gone, Hulk left at the end of this movie. There was just so much going on, so this was like the last hoorah for the OG6, and I absolutely love this film. All right, at number 19 is Ant-Man. So I gotta say about Ant-Man, I think this is technically the first Disney MCU project to be distributed by them. I don't know. But yeah, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, I think he's hilarious. He's a wonderful character, Scott Lang, and I like his arc of him trying to redeem himself. Him trying to be there for his daughter and things like that. So at number 19, Ant-Man. At 18, Werewolf by Night. I've re-seen it probably like 6 or 7 times because I love the thematic, the way it's it's artistic. And Werewolf by Night, I think he's a wonderful character, and I cannot wait to see what they do with that corner of the MCU. Number 18. All right, number 17, Black Panther. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Absolutely love this film. There's not really much I can say that's wrong with it, because there really isn't much wrong with it. Maybe some of the CG, but that doesn't take away from the story that much at all. I think Killmonger is a top tier villain. And then Chadwick, obviously, he's Black Panther, and I absolutely love that character. Okay, coming in at number 16, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Some of you are probably rolling your eyes saying, why did I put Ant-Man and the Wasp in front of Black Panther? I love Black Panther, but I love Ant-Man and the Wasp as well, and even more is because it has a high rewatchability for me. I've seen it so many times because it's kind of like, what can I say? It's kind of like a comfort movie. I just like what they do with the story. I like what they do with the characters. This is my favorite Ant-Man movie of the three. Is Ant-Man, yeah, number 19, a stronger movie overall? Probably, yeah. But Ant-Man and the Wasp, I just rewatched it so many times, and I just love that story. Okay. All right, my next set of 5, we're getting in the top 15. At number 15 is Iron Man, the first MCU movie, RDJ's introduction as Iron Man. It's a solid movie. It's a lot of people's in their top 10 greatest superhero movies of all time. I really love Iron Man. Any issues? Not really. I think probably the only issue you can kind of give it is that it, it being the first MCU movie, there was no formula to follow, but it kind of set the formula of the protagonist and the antagonist is just, you have the Flash and the Reverse Flash. They're the same power, same everything. They just got to fight each other, which is fine. Ironmonger and Iron Man, but it was whatever. And then like you have Black Panther, which was Black Panther and Killmonger that had Panther suits. And then in Ant-Man, you had Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man, both flying insects. So I mean, it's repetitive throughout, but Iron Man did it first, so I'm not holding that against it. All right, number 14, Captain America: The First Avenger. I adore this movie up until the third act. The third act is kind of wishy-washy for me. It's okay. I like the send-off with him and Peggy in that story. But man, this movie, I love the pre-serum whenever he's in the boot camp and all that. Love that sequence, that set of the movie. And yeah, it's a classic. It's World War II type of film. It takes place during World War II and it's in World War II. But yeah, Chris Evans as Captain America, solid. At number 13, Thor Ragnarok is the funniest MCU movie to me. It's great. I mean, that arena sequence, that battle between Thor and Hulk, badass. And Hela, I think she's a really good villain. She's fine towards the end. I mean, she gets more of like conquer the earth type of thing or conquer Asgard type of thing. But I mean, it works in this film because of the characters you have. And Valkyrie, I think she's badass as well. All right, coming in at number 12 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So, this movie has made me cry almost every time I've seen it. I think Yondu is such a standout in this film. He's so wonderful. And then Baby Groot took over pop culture for that year because of what was going on with Baby Groot and Guardians 2. And yeah, in Ego, he's a solid villain. I like Ego as a villain. He's an asshole. When you find out what's actually going on with him, and then the Guardians are just guarding him. They're doing what they do. They banter at each other. I love it. All right, coming in at number 11. So number 11, Shang-Chi, was actually in my top 10 for a little bit, and then some couple of movies that came out afterwards bumped it out. But yeah, Shang-Chi is just Shang-Chi is badass. Just badass. The It's a martial arts movie and it does that so well. Any issues? Not really. I like beginning to end. I think Wenwu as his father and the villain, and that dynamic is super badass throughout. Aquafina, I think she's hilarious throughout the film, and Simu Liu, I cannot wait to see what they do with this character with him throughout the MCU. So, right, let's go ahead and get into my top 10. All right, 10 through 6. All right. Coming at number 10 is Hawkeye. It is my favorite MCU show. In the past, I've said WandaVision, but the more that I've rewatched Hawkeye and I've seen WandaVision a couple more times, Hawkeye clears it by far. It's an old school original formula MCU movie that came out in 2021. It's simple, and what I love about the story, how small the stakes are. There's not, conquering the city. There's no conquering the world. There's no trying to, blow up a whole everything. No, it's just Clip Barton and Kate Bishop trying to stop this monger in the city, and it ended up being Kingpin, and then Kate Bishop's mom. Um, but yeah, Hawkeye, it's gonna be a staple every Christmas. I have to watch it every Christmas, and I watch it throughout the year as well. But yeah, I love this show. Made me fall in love with Hawkeye. He was a good character to me, especially I loved him as Ronin, in Endgame and all that, the way they had portrayed that. But yeah, Hawkeye has become. I actually got a Hawkeye poster because how much I love this show. So number 10, Hawkeye. Number 9, Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is probably one of my favorite MCU movies to see in the theater. When the first time I saw it in theaters, it took my breath away. Uh, I, like many people, didn't know much about this character, or I didn't know these characters at all. And to be introduced to them and to have this be an absolute hit is magic done by James Gunn. Yeah, so this is in my top 10 because I think it's a wonderful movie. The problem is Ronan. Ronan to me is a weak villain overall. He's fine. But overall he's weak. But he's overshadowed by the rest of the team because the Guardians are so badass. All right, number 8 is No Way Home. This movie plays on nostalgia so hard, and I get hooked every time. Seeing Toby and Andrew on screen was just amazing. Seeing Toby on screen made me cry. And I think Tom Holland's performance, this is his best Spider-Man, his best Spider-Man performance. That Aunt May scene crushed me. So Ant-Man, excuse me, Spider-Man No Way Home. If you hear a noise in the background, it's my dryer. All right. Okay, it's done. All right, at number 7 is Avengers Infinity War. So I was debating between Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, which one to put at what place. But ultimately, I went with Infinity War at number 7. Um, this movie, the moment it ended, I, like a lot of people, my jaw was dropped. I didn't know what to think. I was in shock. And post Infinity War and pre Endgame, I wish I could just relive that year as an MCU fan because the speculations were just the best. It was like building up to a championship game. You building up to a championship game because Infinity War is such a badass movie. Um, my favorite character in this film, I would probably say, there goes my washer. I'd probably say Gamora is my favorite character. Um, but yeah, Tony Stark. When Tony got stabbed, I like screeched. But obviously he lives in this one. But yeah, Infinity War, amazing. Okay, At number 6 is Endgame. It is the finale of the Infinity Saga. Well, technically, I think Far From Home is, but Endgame. Um, Cap lifting up Mjolnir, Tony snapping his fingers, the portal scene, so much. And with all those great moments, my favorite scene is just Tony talking to his dad, Howard. That is my favorite scene in this whole movie, in this grand spectacle, because of how much I love these characters. Endgame has forever changed pop culture, and its impact is just beyond comprehension. It's a wonderful film. All right, my top 5. You ready? In 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. So at number 5 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Like Hawkeye at number 10. The reason why I love this film is because of how low the stakes are. It's just Spidey trying to stop Vulture from robbing Tony Stark. That's the story, and I love that. And I think the dialogue in this movie is like what high schoolers talk like. When this film came out, I had just graduated high school. This came out the summer 2017. I graduated in May 2017 or June, whatever. Yeah, so I was still like fresh out of high school, and this took place in high school. And to see the way that the kids, the high schoolers talked and the way they interacted, it felt like it was me and my friends, in the movie. And yeah, I love, this is the most New York, to me, the New York-esque Spider-Man movie. Excuse me, because it just is to me. I just love this movie. I love how simple it is, and I love the dialogue. This elevates the movie so much, was the dialogue. Okay, at number 4 is Avengers, the 2012 Avengers. Like mentioned earlier, this was the first event in the MCU. It is so rewatchable. Loki, I think, is wonderful as the villain. And I love Tony and Steve's dynamic in this movie. And then the rest of the OG6 are badass. I love them. And then Nick Fury, I think this is one of his best performances, Nick Fury. Yeah, well, I don't know one more to say. This is a badass movie. Number 3 is Captain America Winter Soldier. The best espionage type film in the MCU to me, and I think it's just a great movie. Not even think about MCU, just a great spy movie. Steve Rogers, is the way he was assimilating to modern day times, the way that they portrayed that, and that notebook he had was really cool. Yeah, I think this movie is just badass from beginning to end. All right, at number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Okay, so it could change in the future, but right now I have it at 2. I rewatched it yesterday. Actually, I saw it in 3D. It's really good in 3D. And I actually elevated some scenes. But it didn't need any elevating because this movie is wonderful from beginning to end. I cried multiple times. The story that it told. I'm not gonna get into spoilers because it's still in theaters, but man, Rocket Raccoon, wonderful. Peter Quill, wonderful. Drax, Nebula, Mantis, Groot, Gamora, Kraglin, Cosmo. Everybody is wonderful in this film. And the High Evolutionary, he's a mother effer. He is such a good villain. Chikudi Iwuji, who portrays him. I was watching an interview with him last night. He's like a classically trained actor and all that, and he really shows it in this film. He's wonderful as High Evolutionary. And the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, oh, I don't know. It's beautiful. Beautiful movie. And for that being number 2, with all that high praise, number 1 for me is Captain America Civil War. So, like I mentioned, I was debating on 1 and 2, and I had, for a little bit when I was making this list, I had Guardians at 1 for a little while. And when I was done with my list, I looked back to number 1 and 2, and I love the Guardians with all my heart. And then Civil War in 2016 is just the best MCU movie to me. That's why it's number 1. The story between Tony and Steve and what they go through, and then the conclusion at the end, that fight scene, is gut wrenching. Whenever Tony's about to, I forget whenever him and Bucky were fighting. Oh, before they started fighting, whatever. No, they were already fighting. And then Steve was like, "He's my friend," and then Tony's like, "So was I." My gosh, beautiful, beautiful. The chase scene with Bucky, Black Panther, and Captain America, and then Sam Wilson as well. I think that's just badass. It's just a badass movie to me. It's perfect, and from beginning to end. And for the amount of so this is an Avengers 2.5 movie, obviously, and for the amount of characters that it has and has to juggle throughout, it still accomplishes such a tight knit story, tight knit dialogue. And then obviously getting introduced to Black Panther in the MCU, rest in peace Chadwick Boseman. I thought his introduction was beautiful, and to see, and that's my favorite Black Panther suit is the one that he wears in Civil War. Love it. And then getting introduced to Spidey in the MCU, seeing Tom Holland for the first time, I thought it made the whole audience screech because that was such a badass sequence to see him introduced. The Rhodey moment when he falls, that was so sad. Um, and yeah, Civil War, I think, is just a perfect MCU movie to me. Zero misses. And yeah, the Russo brothers killed it with this one. I absolutely love this movie. But guys, that is pretty much my list. Well, that is my list. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? If our lists are identical, wow, which I doubt it. I don't know if I'll be able to match with anybody else in terms of the stuff, but I hope you have enjoyed my rankings. Like again mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's just my personal rankings. You can have my dead last movie be your number one, and I'm not gonna be mad. Will I look at you differently in terms of like why do you have that at number one? Probably, but it's all love at the end of the day. This is what we do. It's subjective. Opinions are subjective. We all have our own. So, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video so far. And if you're still watching, please subscribe. We would really do appreciate the support we have been getting recently. But as always, guys, I am Chris. I will catch y'all next time. Peace.